All right, could you please state your name?
My name is Shane Trejo.
Trejo.
Yes.
All right. And are you a resident of Michigan?
Yes, I live in Novi, Michigan.
Okay. For how many years have you been a resident of this state?
My entire life, so 33 years.
Okay. And you are over the age of 18, correct?
Yes.
And today we'll be telling us about things that you personally witnessed.
Yes.
Okay. What days this year were you involved with the election?
I served as a poll challenger on the night shift after the election had concluded. So I was there at TCF as a poll challenger.
Could you speak up a little bit for us, buddy?
I was there as a poll challenger at TCF from about 9:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. On the night after the election and the morning after the election in Detroit.
Okay. And who were you a poll challenger with? Did you represent a certain group?
I was there. I was trained by Trump Victory.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the individuals. I went through Marion Sheridan's Guard the Vote with MCC. So I went to 2 trainings that she had set up, where there was a Trump Victory guy there, and then on poll challenging day, I got there a little bit after the orientation already began. But I get the feeling it was the same type of people, same type of Trump Victory people who were running the show that day too.
So when you were at the TCF, though, did your credentials identify you as a Republican poll challenger?
Yes, I had credentials that said Michigan MIGOP, certified by Laura Cox, poll challenger, and you didn't have to present the credential really when you were on the floor, but I did have it just in case anyway.
Okay, gotcha. So what did you witness there that you wanted to tell us about today?
The one thing, basically, again, I showed up late for the poll to get there for the poll challenging. It was a lot of helter skelter. It didn't seem like anyone knew what was going on. I was not even given a table I was supposed to be at. So I'm running around with chickens with their heads cut off. But then I reached Phil O'Halloran, who had been with Marion Sheridan, one of the activist leaders, who was setting up all these different ways that we could monitor as ballots are being collected, distributed, all that stuff. So he was one of the guys in charge of setting up that operation for electoral transparency. So I see Phil as I'm about to check in, and he says, "Well, we need you for a certain task. You're going to look out the back entryway where people were showing up with ballots." And Phil told me that people had just been showing up with boxes of ballots, that they had, there was no chain of custody, that it was very shady how it was being done. They're trying to get information about the vans or the cars or whatever vehicles were showing up, identification of the people who were, identification of the people who were showing up with the ballots, and I believe they were also trying to figure out where the cars were going, if they were making any stops in between the clerk's office.
Can you give me Phil's full name, please?
Phil O'Halloran.
And where in the TCF Center is this?
This is in the back. There's a big, the facility where all the rooms were set up. You go to the back, and there's a way that cars can just drive right into the facility. And that was like a garage door that opened, and cars were coming in with the ballots. So Phil had said, I think he had been looking at the ballots. So he put me and another gentleman, an Asian fellow, back there just to look at the ballots, and he gave me the impression that they'd be coming in fast and furious all night. So I'm sitting back there. We sit there for hours, and not one ballot showed up. People have shown up to
When you say hours, kind of roughly, can you give us a time frame of what?
There was no. From what I saw, there was not one ballot that showed up from at least 10 p.m. Or let me say at least 10:30 to the 3:30 a.m. when roughly the number that Colbeck gave was 38,000 ballots showed up. I counted over 50 different boxes of ballots that showed up all at once at 3:30 a.m. Someone gave an official count of 61. So 61 ballots. They were all in USPS boxes. It wasn't delivered by USPS.
61 boxes of ballots.
Yes, yes, and it wasn't delivered by USPS necessarily. It was in a van, a white van that had the city clerk's emblem on it, and it said Janice Winfrey, some tagline, and had her number, and I was told by a lady named Monica, I think his name is Monica Palmer, from she's Wayne 14th district. She's like a Republican who serves on, I think, the board of canvassers or board of elections in Wayne County. She had said that one of the men who had shown up with the ballots, she had seen him around the elections clerk's office. So she was under the impression, she thought that this guy worked for the city clerk or the county or someone. So
Was Monica back there with you?
Monica, I'm not sure where she was at the time, but she said she saw the guy who came in. I saw him. He was wearing like a blue hoodie, and he had been there before. He had showed up and looked kind of confused actually earlier in the night. He didn't unload any ballots, but he showed up looking angry and confused.
Was he in the same vehicle?
It was a different vehicle. Yes.
Do you remember what vehicle he showed up in?
I have my notes back at my apartment. I'll forward you those notes. I took explicit notes on all the different cars and stuff.
You guys have each other's contact
Yeah.
info?
Oh yeah. So I'll send all that. But he had shown up in a car. He gets out of the car. He looks around, kind of angry, like he didn't know what was going on. And he went and talked to whoever, and then got out of there. And then hours later, him and two other people come back with the ballots, 61 boxes, over 50 boxes from my count. And
so you saw these boxes?
I saw the boxes for myself being unloaded in the dead of night.
And you counted at least 50.
At least 50.
And some estimates have it somewhere between 50 and 61.
Yes.
How many ballots roughly could be in each box?
They were pretty big boxes. I would say thousands potentially. That could have been packed in these large boxes. Definitely hundreds. So potentially it can even be more than the 38,000 number.
Did you notice any security cameras anywhere?
I didn't see any security cameras. I don't think I necessarily looked though. Probably should have, but I don't necessarily see any security cameras. I know that us taking any sort of video or recording was prohibited strictly, so that sort of allowed them to do it.
But it was
in the dead of night.
But it was a white van with it looked like city clerk's office.
And Monica said it was the city clerk's emblem that was on the van.
Did you see the van?
Yes, I saw the van.
Okay. Did anything about ballots arriving in a van that looked like that seem out of the ordinary?
It seemed highly suspicious to me because there's no reason why they couldn't have been processing the ballots in smaller batches and sending them over throughout the night. Because in the hours, I think there were still some ballots there that were being processed throughout the night. However, the vast majority of the challengers, of the workers, were just sitting around. They went and got lunch. They had a long lunch. They were just sitting around collecting their money, sort of playing beat the clock, it seems. And then by the time that all the ballots showed up, our shift was over. All the poll challengers' shift was over. The ballots couldn't even really be processed. The ballots couldn't even really be processed by all the people who had showed up. To hundreds of people had showed up to be poll challengers, and they were almost completely disenfranchised because they had nothing to challenge because the ballots showed up at the dead of night at 3:30 a.m. presumably from the clerk's office, and then of course during that 6 or 7 hours from when 8 p.m. when the ballots were supposed to all be in by at that time, 7.5 hours or so. Who knows what could have been done with those ballots in the interim period in which they were being held up from us.
So they were all supposed to be in by 8, but these people were showing up at 3:30.
Well, from my understanding of the law, 8 p.m. they cannot take any more ballots after 8 p.m. So they should have had all the ballots then. I understand why there would be some sort of sorting or processing or something to that effect. I understand that takes time, but there's absolutely no excuse for why all the ballots should have shown up at once, should have been dumped on us at once in the dead of night when we could have been doing our jobs and processing them, slowly throughout the night when there wouldn't be a potentiality for fraud. So, and then the next day, from what I was told, it got even worse.
Did you hear any excuse why this truck showed up so late?
Anytime I tried to ask questions, I would be stonewalled. There was no answers as to why it was done like this. None that were even attempted to be given, and there was no reasoning behind why they all showed up at once at 3:30.
What did you see happen with these boxes?
They were put in. They were basically put around. They were all stacked up. There was some people were going through some sort of, and I know there was. I'm not sure if this was separate or a part of all the ballots that were dumped, but I know there was a lot of blank ballots that were there, presumably for the duplicates.
In those boxes?
I'm not sure if they were in the boxes. I know they were ahead of the boxes. The way, as you saw all the boxes spread out, and then you saw a bunch of mail bins filled with blank ballots at that point, presumably for the lawful duplication process. Although I don't know, there didn't seem to be any oversight. There were ballots anywhere. People were taking them and doing God knows what with it. And again, it just all seemed very improper. It didn't seem like anyone had any sort of handle on the process, from the challengers, from the MIGOP, from the election workers. It was just total chaos.
But sorry to back up. So
Yes.
the white, you said it was a minivan or it was a white truck, a small truck?
It was like a white van.
A white van.
Yeah.
White van shows up, stops, 3 people get out.
Yes.
One that you had seen earlier
One who had been there. Yes.
with a blue hoodie on.
Yes.
They unload somewhere north of 50 boxes that say USPS on them. They stack them up. Did they put them on a cart?
I think they just physically. They moved them out of the box, put them on a cart, and wheeled them over to where they were basically stacked on each other. And then around 5:30, we're dismissed. Next shift, and everyone was ushered out.
Don't before you jump ahead. So they put them on the cart. When did you lose sight of them?
Well, at a certain point when I saw all the ballots coming in, I went to alert other poll challengers. Hey, the ballots are here. You should probably head down, because they were all disenfranchised. They had nothing to do. They were up in the center eating or drinking coffee, up in the room that we had, room 260.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, when I saw the ballots being wheeled in, I went upstairs and put an APB out to everyone, making sure, get down there, get some eyes on this operation.
Do you remember who you told?
Everyone who was in the room. Some of the people I remember, I've reached out to and told them to come on the record today. I know that some of the people I talked to included, Linda Sawyer, Holly Spalding. Who's some of the other ones? I don't know if they want their names told necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Devereaux is another one. I know those 3. They had no problem with having their names known and going on the record. So there are others.
Even people who don't want to be on the record, we won't share their names. But
Okay.
Could you just tell us who
The one lady who had, I think, the most compelling testimony anyone I talked to was,
Mm-hmm.
and she had said that when she was watching, she was the one who said that when she was watching the ballot duplication process, the 2 people who were attempting to duplicate the whatever ballot, they couldn't read. They didn't know how to read. They were illiterate, so they were looking at the paper, just not knowing what to do. And then their supervisor or whatever came over and just told them, you got to do this, do that, like every step of the way, because they were illiterate. They couldn't read, and they were in charge of the ballot process to supervise what was going to potentially decide a national election. So that seemed pretty scandalous to me.
So these weren't poll workers; these were supervisors.
Or no, I believe, and again, Holly would be able to probably clarify.
Sure.
The the two poll workers who were doing the duplication of the ballot, they didn't know what they were doing. The supervisor had to come in, whatever supervisor, it might have just been another poll worker
Right.
who could read, came in and said, "Oh, do this," walk them through the process
Right.
because they couldn't, they were functionally illiterate.
Right. But they certainly weren't consulting the rule book or.
Did not seem. Yeah, of course, there was a lot of just rule breaking in terms of, this is how we've always done it type of rule breaking that it seemed, not necessarily a bad, not necessarily because people are maliciously trying to throw the election or anything like that. It's just no one's ever enforced the process. This is how we've done it, and they get cheesed off if you point that out. There's a lot of that going on that it seemed, but I think that just it's more of like the process is such a free for all that it allowed all these ballots to just come in and be counted, these dubious ballots, and it allowed them to come in and do this process where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes seem to shift at the last minute from to give Biden the state. So there's definitely a lot of potentiality for fraud within the process.
Did you see anybody challenge the ballots that came in?
I'm not sure I'm not sure. I think the challenges of the ballots is when the next day when everyone showed up at TCF and they literally covered up the walls so no one could see inside, and poll challengers were boxed out allegedly and stuff like that. I think that's when those ballots, and I even had heard murmurs that other ballots were brought in after the 3:30 a.m. dump. But once when those ballots were being processed, that's when the incredibly hostile operation where MDHHS and cops and poll workers were trying to disenfranchise the challengers.
MDHS?
MIDHHS. They showed up and enforced the COVID restrictions to keep people out.
Oh.
Yeah.
People who had been in there previously.
Yeah, they showed up and gave again, from what I've heard, I was not there when this happened, but from reports in every instance, it's even been reported in the news that Michigan Department of Health and Human Services showed up to enforce the order of we can only have X amount of people in the giant warehouse facility, open air. No ventilation issues in this place. It's ginormous, but we can only have however many people in there. So you guys who might be able to stop the steal, you guys might be able to witness corruption. Well, you're disenfranchised, and the people in there were being harassed according to what they've told me. And there was like poll workers boxing them out so they couldn't see what was going on, so they couldn't see the challenge ballot, so they couldn't even challenge the ballot because they couldn't see it, couldn't even view the process as it was happening. And that seems to be when these the ballots that showed up at 3:30 a.m. were being processed.
Ooh.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. This is bad
So,
stuff.
have you heard anything, because you're a journalist, have you heard anything in the media that this 30,000 ballot dump, or however many it was, that error has somehow been cured or fixed since it was reported?
I mean, it hasn't been, as far as I know, it hasn't been reported by the media. As far as I know, what's been reported by the media is angry Trump supporters show up outside of Kobo to cause mayhem and steal the election. That's how I've seen it reported by the mainstream media. I don't even know if Fox News and Breitbart have covered it. I know Gateway Pundit has.
And then the Texas guy's tweet got deleted, and so that's proof that there's nothing to it.
Oh,
Mac, who did the graphic of showing Biden's vote totals going up 180,000 votes or whatever, and then they said it was a clerical error, and then he has since deleted the tweet. And so their cover fire on this is to say,
Was that Michigan or Wisconsin though?
it was a Travis County GOP chairman, Matt McEnow, whatever his last name is, talking about Michigan.
He was talking about Michigan.
Right.
Okay.
And they said, well, he's since deleted his tweet. And that's their cover for there's nothing to any of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, could you describe the three people? You said one guy, blue hoodie, right? Was he white, black, Hispanic?
They were all black.
Three black guys.
Yes.
Were they fat, skinny, average build?
Well, I think one might have been a woman. I remember the two who were. Okay, I remember the two. One was just sort of a bigger dude. Another was smaller, a little bit smaller on the medium end of the spectrum. Those are the two guys I remember who were.
Blue hoodie guy, was he fat, skinny?
I would say normal type build, maybe a little stocky, but not. He wouldn't come off as fat.
Yeah.
Could
you get any idea of how tall he was?
I would say probably maybe 6'2". So maybe a little taller than me, I think.
So bigger guy.
Yeah, so he was a big dude, and
okay.
Again, he had some text on his hoodie that may have that I noticed. I think it was P. Farrell he had on his hoodie, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
I couldn't get a good look at it.
And then there was another man.
And there was another man with him who was helping with the ballots.
Black male.
Yes.
Fat, skinny.
I would say about average build.
Average.
Yeah.
Height.
I'd say maybe about 5'6", 5'7".
So shorter than the other.
Shorter than the other guy, yeah. And if I would say the younger guy or the smaller guy was maybe in his early 20s, and I would say that the guy with the hoodie, P. Farrell, I think that was his name. The hoodie guy, blue hoodie, he was probably 40s.
And then there's a woman with him.
I'm forgetting who the third person was, but I think that might have been the driver, and they didn't seem to be as involved in sorting through them, so I forget who the third person was, but there was three.
Okay.
And once I get to my notes, I may have information about that, and I can figure out who the Asian fellow was that worked with me, because at a certain point, I was running around alarming all the challengers that something like this was gonna happen, while he stayed there by the garage door, the entire night. So he should have even more detailed notes than me, with regards to what exactly happened.
And you don't have direct knowledge, but your assumption is that those 50 plus boxes were just fed into all the different counting stations the next day.
That definitely seems to be the case. Again, like that, there was no, as he said, there was no, we found the error with these ballots. As far as I know, no one even showed up and they were processed. No one even batted an eyelash about it, except me and the activists and the outlets that have reported on it, which are none of the mainstream outlets.
Have you even been contacted by any mainstream outlets to ask about this?
No.
Any local media ask about this? TV stations, newspapers, dailies, weeklies? No one. Nothing.
Nothing. I've talked to a reporter at a couple, for the rallies. I talked to a couple reporters just about, here they want to know where's the rally at. Okay, here's the rally. So they're covering, it a little bit, probably in a biased way, but nothing about what I saw. No.
If I may interject here, just a personal perspective, how is it possible that I, with very few connections and very little time spent online, heard about this in Texas Wednesday? The thing you just described happening up here in Detroit, I heard about it in Texas on Wednesday. How does local media here not hear about it?
Well, I mean, that really shows, the power of social media and why they want to shut down free discussion and on social media, because, I posted this stuff. I also did, I'll talk about the Detroit leaks beforehand, before the election, published a bunch of articles on the Detroit leaks where a poll worker was, telling people, oh, you can say COVID and they can't do any of the ballots. So you can say COVID 6 feet, and they can't come within you to actually judge the ballots or challenge the ballots or look at any sort of fraud that may or may not be happening. So they were explicitly told by this poll worker to use that as an excuse, and all the workers were cackling at, ha ha ha, they won't be able to do that. And that was really powerful. There's other stuff there too where they're just telling workers to basically be hostile to challengers. Here's how to thwart them, that kind of stuff. So that came out before the election, and the leaks did spur a decision by the state. There was a lawsuit with Bob Cushman and Steve Cara where they sued to make the directive explicit to where poll challengers are expected to abide by COVID standards. But if they do have to come close to do their job as challengers and inspect ballots, that's completely legal. So the Detroit Leaks series was able to get that rule changed, but all the reports from the people on the ground were the workers still tried to use COVID to disenfranchise the poll challengers. They were, they did have to go to the supervisor, and the supervisor did tell the poll workers, hey, you can't do that. But they still tried whenever possible to disenfranchise challengers throughout the process. So the Detroit Leaks series, and I see that posted just by random people. After it got censored by YouTube, it seemed like that the Streisand effect, as it were, that really is a thing, because people just started uploading it on random websites and like in random tweets with their phone. Like they took video of it on their phone, and I see these weird videos, Detroit Leaks videos, popping up just on random tweets, and it's making major traction. But there has been no interest in the story, as far as I know, that I have seen about any of the electoral fraud from the local news, from any local news. I haven't seen it covered whatsoever. And as far as I know, none of the people and none of the stories that we've experienced have been covered, in any sort of local outlets throughout Michigan.
Do you have anything else to add?
Did anybody offer you any kind of compensation for coming to talk to us today?
No.
Has your story been coordinated and ironed out with anybody else who may have been there with you?
The person who did the Detroit Leaks, the individual who was attended the poll worker training. I did work with him on the Detroit Leaks stories to make sure all the details were ironed out, and that there were no ducks in any row, that all of our ducks are in a row, so to speak. So I did work with him to make sure that the Detroit Leaks story was as factually accurate as possible. But other than that, it's just been me working with Big League Politics and the editors there, trying to avoid social media censorship. We've been censored for even allude.
Okay, but let me complete your thought, please. Did any of your work with this other journalist alter your perception of what you witnessed on the day you were at TCF?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It did not.
Thank you.
Do you have any faith in Detroit's count?
No. I think probably if we're going to be fair, I mean, I don't see how you probably have to throw the entire election out. There's been so much fraud, and redo it if you wanted to have some sort of outcome that you can trust. I don't think anyone can trust any outcome at this point with this rampant fraud. And this is an assault on not just our democracy, but on our constitutional republic itself.
Thanks.